Garza, Matte 210, Innovative Type. Today I'm going to show you how I created the coffee bean text. Let's get started. First, I go to File, New. I'm going to use 7 inches wide by 4.5 inches tall at 300 pixels per inch, RGB 16-bit, custom black. Create. Once I've got my background, I'm now going to use Command R to show my rulers. I'm going to right-click my rulers to put them into percents. Now that I have them in percents, I'm going to click and drag a rule guide down to the horizontal 50% and a vertical to the 50% center as well. I'm going to use an additional guide, clicking and dragging from the top down to 15% for future references. Now that that is set, I'm going to set my background color. With that, I'm going to use my gradient tool. I click on my gradient tool and I ensure that I am on the color to color mode. Click OK, and now select my foreground color. My foreground color will be 805 Echo 02. Click OK. Now I select my background color, which will be 1 Echo 1 305. Click OK. That looks good. Now with the gradient tool, I'm going to select the center bottom of my work page and click and drag up to the midway point between the 50% and 15%. Great. Now that I have my background color, I'm going to create a new layer for my text. So I will go to my Layers panel and New Layer, click, and I will type in with my text tool the word KOE. I'm going to use my text palette, which is located right here, or you can find it in the Windows character, and I'm going to choose Skia, S-K-I-A, at 100 point, and the color I need to use is white. Select white, click OK, and I'm going to click on my workspace here. I'm going to use capital C, O, and I'm going to add 5 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to add the finishing of the letter E, E. While I'm on this layer, I'm going to highlight my C, and I'm going to increase it by 50 points, so I'm going to use 150 points. Now I'm going to create a little space between my C by holding the Alt key, right arrow, 2, 3, 4, 5, just to create a little space between there. Once I've done that, I will now go back to my Move tool and grab another text, the FF. Clicking on the text tool, choosing a spot on the bottom, at 150 point, staying the same, I'm going to have FF. FF. There it is. Now I'm going to click and drag that into position with my Move tool. And I want just to be centered for now because it will change. I will now transform the FF by using the Command T function for free transform. I will now stretch the F's down below the text line and raise the top part of the F above the O and the E. A little bit more on the bottom until I create my desired effect. I will now hit Enter, and there we go. I'm going to go back to my KOE layer text and click on there with the text tool. And I'm going to bring it in just a little bit by Alt left arrow. That was 4 clicks. Now I'm going to transition back to my Move tool, and I'm going to move the entire KOE to my right. That was 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Basically what I'm trying to do is to just center the O and the E to the F. I think it might be easier if I go like that. Great. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off my background layer, select my top text layer, the FF, and I'm going to go to Layers, Merge Down, Merge Visible. Now I've put my text all on one layer, and I can bring my background back up, and there we have it. Next I'm going to do is bring in my coffee beans. So I'm going to go to my coffee bean image. I'm going to hit Command A to select all, Command C to copy, go back to my work page and hit Command V. Then I'm going to select onto the text layer and hold my Command key and click on the text layer window box to select the marching ants around the text. I'm now going to select onto my layer of the beans and do a mask, a layer mask. But before I put a layer mask, I'm going to do my select, modify, feather, so the edges are not so hard, and I'm going to feather it to a 6. And then select OK. Now I can do my layer mask. As you can see, there is a white halo behind the text. That is because the text is still on. I shall turn that off, and I'm going to label it. I'm going to label it text. I'm going to label the bean layer and text layer as coffee. Now at this point, I'm going to take some artistic liberties and select my image of beans and go to my adjustment and go to brightness contrast. In the brightness contrast, I'm going to do brightness 40 and I'm going to do contrast 50 to get a nice warm rich color. Once I've done that, I'm now going to select onto the coffee layer, select onto the mask layer of coffee, and I'm going to use my erase tool. I'm going to grab my erase tool and I'm going to set the brush at 30 pixels for the size, and the hardness will be 20. Once I've done that, I'm going to reverse my foreground background so that my background is now my foreground and my foreground is now my background, and I'm going to use my Command plus or zoom to enlarge my image so I can see the details in the text. I'm going to use my spacebar to use the hand tool to grab and drag so that I can see the text that I'm working with. I'm now going to start randomly selecting beans that have a nice texture and bring out the texture that I'm looking for the beans, as if the text was made by beans. Once I've completed that phase, I will use Command 0 to bring the canvas back to working size. And now I'm ready to do some effects on the text. I'm going to double click on the coffee layer and bring up my bevel and emboss. I'm going to click on the bevel and emboss on the right side, and the inner bevel will be, the style will be inner bevel, the depth will be 53, the size will be 29, soften 0, the shading will be 90, and the highlight mode will be screen, and I'm going to click onto the color box of screen and use 51, 50, 50 for my color on the screen. And then I'm going to increase the opacity to 75%. Once that's complete, I will now go to my drop shadow. Drop shadow will be blend mode normal. Color will be black. The angle will be 125. The distance will be 24. Spread will be 44. Size will be 18. And then we're good right there. Hit OK. Once that's complete, I'm now ready to bring in my steam. I will create a new layer by clicking on the top of the stack of layers and creating a new layer. And I'm going to go to Filter, Render, Clouds. Once I've rendered my clouds, I will now add a layer mask. Once my layer mask has been added, I will go back to my gradient tool, being sure to select the color to no color tab, which is the second from the left, clicking OK. At this point, I'm going to start from the center 50% vertical and horizontal, and click and drag my mouse up to the top of the page. Once that's complete, I will now use my transform by hitting Command T. And now I'm going to use the left handle on the transform and bring it in between the C and the O. Now I'm going to bring my right handle of the transform and bring that about 10% outside of the E. Once that's complete, I'm going to shrink in my workspace so that I can see beyond the borders. I'm now going to grab the top handle of the transform tool and raise it up about 10 to 20, 15% above the canvas, and I'm going to grab the lower handle and drag that one about 10 to 15% below the canvas. And I'm going to hit Enter to complete the transformation. Now I'm going to select my eraser tool again with a brush size of 100 and a hardness of 20%. I'm going to remove the hard lines, Command Z. I'm going to remove the hard lines from the mask. But first I need to bring my foreground back to the front and my background back to the back so that I can hide that mask. So using the feather portion of the brush, I'm going to feather the sides of the mask to create a more natural flow of steam. I'm also going to erase some of the steam that's on the front of the coffee beans because they're just a little bit too steamy and they need to be a little bit more cleany. So I'm just going to address that so that they pop out nicely with a little bit of steam above the text. Once I'm happy with that, I will now remove my guides by hitting Command semicolon, and that is the completion of the coffee bean text. Thank you for watching.